It is 9:01. I'm going to call this meeting to order.
Commissioner Cheney,
Here.
Commissioner Casterline,
Here.
Commissioner Russo. Here. Commissioner Dupnick,
Here.
Judge Garza.
I am present and we have a full court. Item number one.
Good morning,
Morning.
Judge and Commissioners.
Where's she at? What? Y'all wake up now.
17, is that what you said? 17.
And I just kind of feel we've been too easy on you.
I-
It's in training and
Don't stop now.
Yeah, don't stop now.
They never were this easy on me.
Yeah, well, you'll notice that I really didn't ask for anything else. I know this is going to be a tight year. I am hoping that there will be enough money for steps for employees. I understand that may not be a possibility, but I hope so. And if not that, I sure hope there's a COLA. Because, you know, everybody that works for the county is going through the same thing everybody else is. I honestly don't know how to budget for next year. Moving into the new courthouse, I don't know what all we need. I was visiting with the judge and said, you know, how are we getting our stuff into the new courthouse? So I'm guessing there's going to have to be budgeting for moving some way or another, you know, and none of the shelving was budgeted. When they built the courthouse, it never occurred to me that they wouldn't include the shelving for, you know, when I told them how many records I had and they could go into a high density shelving area, it never occurred to me that they would allocate the area and not include the shelves, which make it work. So for this year, this coming year, I really don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that I've got not pretty shelving at the storage building. And, you know, assuming that they can get the area prepared for the records to be there statutorily, then we can use old stuff for now. So that's what I'm looking at doing. Everything else, I'm just kind of letting it ride. As always, you know, this budget is just my best guess at what it's going to cost. And I generally give the county back a little bit of money every year. So I don't know of anything I can cut. And like I said, I realize it's going to be a tough year. So anybody have any questions?
You're
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
and the county clerk both are going to have very similar issues.
Yes.
Do you think we're going to have to get another space and I mean, I don't know. That is an absolute necessary thing because that's what the county clerk and the district clerk do is keep records.
Right.
Primary job.
You know, again, like I said yesterday, I'm not sure how that happened. The architects knew. I mean, if they've done courthouses in the past, they should know the statutes. But even if they didn't, I had it on my original questionnaire and whatever. But besides that, the courtrooms are also a little bit of an issue. I also didn't realize that they hadn't planned for any seating in those. From what I gather, they're going to do stackable chairs, which are going to have to be moved every time, I'm sure. And the county's going to have to pay for somebody to do that.
I don't understand why I've heard somebody else say that if you have fixed chairs or you have stackable chairs, why would they have to be moved?
Stackable chairs
If you
because
had
they just
fixed
get
chairs,
moved all the
they're
time.
going to be there the whole time.
Right,
Why wouldn't you just do the other?
because
You
there's
just
not
have
enough.
That you just have the benefit to use the room for something else if you have stackable chairs.
I agree. But unfortunately, when you go to court and you have a jury trial, the chairs have to be in a certain place because you have to do a seating chart for the attorneys and the judge.
I realize
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah. And so if the room is used for anything else, then the chairs are going to have to be moved, and they get moved all the time. And, you know, I used to do it, but I'm just getting too old for this, y'all. You know, so that's something that we're probably going to have to do. The district courtroom is very small. I'm estimating maybe We can do half of the juries we have to do voir dire in there. Otherwise, we're going to have to go someplace else bigger. And when we do that, it's going to be another expense. I'm sure the sheriff will probably talk to you about that, because anytime you move defendants that aren't in a temporary facility, they have different rules and different things. So, but that's somebody else's budget, not mine. But
How does the courtroom, I haven't been in the courthouse because I just haven't had the time. But how does the courtroom compare to this room?
Smaller.
it's much smaller. The bar is way farther back. And actually, the jury box even comes back a little bit into the area of the gallery. So they're estimating 80 seats. I don't think there's any possible way it can be 80 seats in there. The seats they're planning are 18 inches. My shoulders are a lot bigger than 18 inches. So, you know, we just don't know. It's another one of those things until we get in there. I don't know how many people we can cram in that room, but I will say this on the record. You know, the courtrooms and jury are important. And bear with me. It's the one place that the public has to come, and they're required to come to be there. And I just think it's horrible if we have them so uncomfortable they can't stand it. That is not what the system was for. So we're going to do the best we can, and we're going to make it work one way or the other. I've had court on the street after Hurricane Harvey. So one way or the other, we're going to make it work. But
Pam, I know you spend a lot of your department in district court, a lot of the personnel, there's no money comes to your group as far as, that's one of these unfunded mandates, right?
correct.
So
It's just part of our job. And frankly, we do a lot of things that we don't have to do. I'll tell you right now. However, if we didn't do them, somebody else would have to, and it would cost you a lot more. So that's what we do. And I have the best deputies in the world. They all care. They are so good. And I can't be any more appreciative, because I most certainly couldn't do this all myself. So anyway.
I just have a comment. We were talking this morning and I was asking about moving expenses. Where do we put that budget? Is that going to be under my budget or
It will be under non-departmental.
non-departmental? Okay.
That, and it's,
I'll get with John to get an estimate so we could at least, yeah, we're going to need it next year.
yeah, he has talked to, I know that he has, looked up and talked to, or at least has the name of the people that moved us into this building.
Okay.
So I don't know if he has a price on it yet, but I know he has looked into it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we got to be sure we budget that.
Mhm.
Anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have, unless y'all have a question.
thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, good morning.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And a page number, please.
Sorry, yeah.
$41. Thank you.
All right.
You want to start telling us things, or do you just want us to start asking you?
Y'all have any questions or anything?
I'll-
Yes, ma'am.
So under gas, oil, and lubricants, I noticed you dropped that amount from current year to next year by 30,000,
Yes, ma'am.
which is a nice direction to go, but would you like to explain that?
Yes, well, plain and simple, we didn't use that as much fuel as I estimated last year, so that's why I dropped it. Based off of what I'm doing average this year, that's what I based it off of. And that actually leaves me a little bit of room in case we have no surprises at the end of the year.
So-
Okay, it's just.
So
and I don't
$10,000,
want to s-
I'm sorry?
$10,000 is all the fuel you're gonna use this year?
Yes, sir. With two vehicles, we mostly stay in the county. I go to Corpus to pick up parts and that's really, we mostly stay here in the county. The fleet, the shop vehicle and myself.
So year to date for this year, though, we have 8,200.
Yes, ma'am. So that, so everything, when I get a fuel order in, everything goes into that one account. And then at the end of the month, once everybody's fuel charges, everybody's stuff comes in, it gets charged out accordingly to each department.
So
So-
it hasn't been apportioned out at this point in time.
No, ma'am, it kind of updates as it goes.
It's,
Yes.
it's in those people's budget, am I right?
Yes, sir.
Right,
So your fuel is kind of a pass through then, more or less.
Yes,
yes,
sir.
exactly. His is a
So
more of a
are
pass-through.
you still, do you still have as many groups or different people that are getting fuel from y'all? Like we had other people than county.
Yes,
people at
like
one
the
time.
Lamar Fire Department and they do get charged out for that. That is in our system.
And the
Council
Meals-
on Aging.
Council on Aging, Meals on
Okay.
Wheels.
I knew we had some others for,
We do bill them for that.
Yes, sir.
And then under miscellaneous repairs and maintenance, is that another situation where you found yourself not needing as much as you'd anticipated?
Yes, ma'am, because of last year I had budgeted to add an awning onto our garage. So that's where that's where it had dropped because I don't need that much for that.
Okay,
I was,
great.
I was just questioning, because I know when you look at your 2022 actual, you're looking at less than for 2024 than your 2022 actuals, and that's why I was wondering if that number was high enough, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the majority of where I mainly focus is on my repair parts and my automotive supplies, because that's mainly where my purchases are. So I had to, based off of everything's increasing, everything's expensive, it's just what it is. So that increased, but I was able to cut in different areas. Yes, sir.
so you, when you work on somebody other than, well, say the sheriff's department cars, you charge the parts, is it a pass through on them too, or?
They have, this is the mostly, there are some departments that fall under this, the 353. And then say the sheriff's departments, they have their own line for maintenance, for repair maintenance.
Right.
And
But you charge that to them or do they pay for it?
I charge it, like when I say I get an invoice,
Just like
I
you do
code it and
with
charge it to that account. Yes, sir. Mostly this is road and bridge, but there are some departments that don't have
Yeah.
they don't have a repair line, so I charge it there.
Are there any other things besides fuel and repairs that you take care of for other people?
Besides fuel, parts, I mean, we do help out the airport from time to time.
Mhm.
And that gets charged out. Our time and parts get charged out accordingly, but
Okay.
What's the state of the fleet? How we with all vehicles,
I mean, we have our day-to-day operations. I mean, things do break down, but we try to get them up as best as possible, but fleet wise, I mean, I'd have to get with David and see what his plans are for for what he needs.
But-
And
But as you operate the shop now, are you seeing an inordinate number of vehicles come in from what you would expect?
where we've really had an issue is, and I know that the Sheriff Spartan's phasing them out, is the vehicles that we got after Harvey, the Chargers, and yes, we're having a lot of coolant issues. And it's costing a lot of money. So as those new vehicles come in, I can see that their maintenance budget is going to go down tremendously.
But do you think in the future, to help you better adjust your budget and everything, do you think you need to do a report, at least maybe once a year on the life of individual vehicles?
Yes, sir. That would actually be a good idea. We can actually look at year to date, how much maintenance we have done on that vehicle, plus the age of the vehicle, and then possibly get like a market value and see, we can analyze it and see, is it worth repairing this vehicle compared to what we can get for it, or a trade-in or something like that. I think that would be a great idea.
The sheriff has said several times, and I agree with him, that we need to put vehicles on rotation.
Yes, sir.
On everything, but I've never seen anything in paper or writing that would give the court or the general public any idea of what we're gonna be looking at 3 years from now. Right now, it's just pretty much, we're gonna do 3 this year, 4 that year, 3 again, everything. And I know in the past, we've taken some vehicles that were way beyond the feasibility of keeping them.
Yes, sir.
And we've had others that really could have gone another year or two safely.
Yes,
So
sir.
the whole key is it's gotta be safe and it's gotta be dependable. If
Exactly.
it's no longer safe or dependable, we need to have a way within the upcoming budget, not this year, next year on and on, that we can be prepared for having to buy an extra vehicle, or maybe we can get by with, everything still meets the criteria. No more than a certain number of years, no matter what. But no more than a certain number of miles, no matter what. And then no much on a certain amount of maintenance. And, there's lots of schedules out there that you can look at to do that. I think that'd be well worth it.
I think that's a great
I think
idea,
that'd
sir.
be a
But I
major
think to
benefit.
myself personally, you're trying to manage a department head.
Well,
David Reed and the sheriff have been doing that for years. And they have in their system, how many miles they do a vehicle, how many years old it is. And to me, what you're talking about is getting into their business.
What I think I can help with is on the maintenance cost and how much we've had year to date on each vehicle. That way I can just give them all the information and then they can make a decision.
But I'm sure you're already doing that.
Yes, sir, to a
with those
point. Yes.
people. You're
Yes,
just
sir.
not bringing it to us to look at.
Yes, sir. But if y'all would like, I can bring something like that. I can certainly make spreadsheets.
Well, I think if we need to look at it, I think the sheriff or David or any of the department heads, if they come to us and want a new vehicle, they always have good reasons. They really do. And they all manage their fleet well. But from a management standpoint for finances or for budget, you're the one that's keeping those records.
Yes, sir.
And, if the sheriff thinks we can get another year out of it, or thinks it looks like it needs to be replaced, then he's got some empirical data to deal with.
Yes, sir.
I don't wanna, I'm just saying, I think that'd be a good idea.
I think it's something we can look into, and if we're stepping on somebody's toes, I'm sure they'll let us know
Well,
about it.
and the request has to come from the department head,
Yes, sir.
not from y'all, because y'all work, you work, for certain things, get it going and get it running and keep the record of what it costs. And you give that to the department head, because the time frame for the sheriff on a vehicle is gonna be a lot different than the time frame for road and bridge or anything else.
Yes, sir.
No, I agree with Commissioner Ashline that is really to the department. I think it'd be a good record for us to see.
Yes, sir.
Blake, just a quick question on 410 professional services. That's outside fleet work or mechanic work. You have to go out of the house, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. And we've got some older heavy equipment that that's something that maybe I can talk to Mr. Reed about maybe replacing in the future, but I just want to be ahead of the game, and just in case we have to send it out, because with everything going up, their prices are going up too.
Okay.
So I just want to prepare for the worst.
Okay. And I saw your budget's already going pretty far along this year already. So
Yes, sir. Yeah, I try to monitor it at least once a month.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate
Yeah.
you
Yeah, good
giving
job.
us,
Yeah.
All right.
saving
Yeah.
some money.
Oh, I have to say, this time last year, the fuel costs were insane. We're doing a lot better this year, probably like at least $1 less a gallon. And I'm hoping we can only hope and pray that the economy gets a little bit better and the prices come down on stuff. So that's one good thing that's been going on.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
Good work.
thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Blake.
I have called Ginger and she's coming on over, as well as Mike.
Okay.
And then I told David and the sheriff to be here as soon as they can also.
All right. We'll take a recess until Ginger gets here.
Like maybe 5 minutes.
I don't know how
Yeah, I
far she
don't
is.
think it'll take long, because I told her she needed to come on, and she was the first one I called when I went.
Yeah,
in.
I texted her too to let her know that the schedules were moving more quickly.
You don't have to worry about fuel, no electric vehicles.
No.
We'll have to worry about other things now.
Put a solar panel on the roof.
There you go.
Put us in a 5-minute recess, please. Thank you.
67, 47 or 60?
47.
47.
All right, it is 9:28. We are back in session. All
Good
right,
morning.
good morning. You want to tell us a little bit about your budget?
Okay. Let's see. We asked mostly for an increase on travel. Just because, prices have gone up. But we've only asked for a total increase of 7,000, I guess.
I mean, the total. Looks like you've asked for an $800 travel. increase.
Oh, yeah, I mean, total. Yeah, total.
Ginger, have we put the aquatics guy on yet?
Yes, well, I'm not sure. Actually, if his 3,500, that was for travel. Where that is on,
Are we talking about Patrick Cruz?
yes, Patrick Cruz.
He does receive reimbursement. It's in that 488 travel and meals.
Okay, so originally for the first month or two, he was getting a monthly allowance, which was not how it was supposed to be. So now his travel money is in the account, and like Tana said, he's getting reimbursed for travel.
Okay, when we say his travel money, so he doesn't live in Rockport?
He doesn't live in Rockport, but we're only talking about travel from our office.
He was receiving a travel allowance.
That explains that 332 this year's.
Right,
budget.
yes, sir, yes, sir. And then at some point, I think Ginger reached out and said that that was not intended. She did not intend for it to go into the travel allowance, and nor did Patrick Cruz. So we did do a transfer over into the 488 in paying that as just a reimbursement.
And that's if he submits out of county mileage.
Correct.
So if he's going, where would he go? Like to a conference or
Conference.
where else?
Or to
Well, like he went,
Calhoun County.
he went to Calhoun or Galveston to do training for boater safety the other day. Does he get mileage for that?
Yes, sir.
Do we get reimbursed by that county?
No, he's going to learn for himself, for us.
He's a student, not an instructor.
And he only gets the mileage if he does not use a county vehicle. If he's using
Right.
a county vehicle, he does not get any reimbursement.
Yeah, and today's the days in Galveston, and he's got the county vehicle.
Okay.
But it's, again, if he does request, if he takes his personal vehicle, because our vehicle is being used, then his mileage is from our office. Just like Megan's and mine. It's not from our home.
The increase in telephone, that's sort of like what I asked about yesterday, because the airport and somebody else had a huge increase in their telephone.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of info on our utilities. I had talked to Colin to see if we could get a line removed, but he said we'd already gotten that line removed. All the lines removed we could. We didn't ask for an. Did we ask for an increase? I'm sorry.
No, ma'am.
4,000.
So do you know why it went up, Colin? 4,000? Or 4,100?
Part of that is a pass through of the expense for the AT&T circuit that got installed out there.
Some of that like a one-time charge, then you're saying?
Those are gonna be monthly fees
Gonna be a monthly fee.
that, to get their connectivity to the internet and the rest of the network, to
Okay.
bring their phone and everything else online.
Do they get some of the spectrum also?
They do have Spectrum. That connection is their backup connection. In light of the recent outages, it saw safe to keep them both. We can remove the Spectrum line. I wouldn't recommend it. That because if we ever have AT&T go down, then they'd be down until AT&T came back up.
You can't use both of them at the same time, or?
They do operate, but you have to pay for them. if you stop paying, they of course go away and then you don't have the backup.
Does the county have, I want to say, mobile hotspots for them? If
The
you lose
hotspots
connect-
would not operate their computers.
Okay,
They wouldn't operate. their
How-
computers.
it's not that level of commercial, not that commercial grade.
We
How
don't have
often is
hotspots.
one service down compared to the other, like? And for how long?
Well, with Spectrum, they were down for a week.
But that's like that was a,
That, I mean,
Yeah, that was a freak
and
thing.
yeah, that was a,
and it's great to talk about not having a backup, but until you need it.
yeah.
How much?
Just like having car insurance, it's great.
Because
to
they
Pay
both
for
over
it,
the
but-
last year or two had periods where they were out for days. You know,
they
I
had a
know
couple
I-
cable cuts. And
But could you still operate without telephone for a couple of days? Is it like
Um,
a use, I mean, emergency? cheap-
We can without telephone, but of course our computers, our internet is not
Right.
hooked up with that. We're so dang dependent on the internet. But how much does the backup line cost or backup service?
I'd have to bring those numbers back in.
Okay.
I don't have the spreadsheet with me.
Yeah, because we have wondered about our, I'm sorry. I didn't hear the last part. I didn't.
So-
I was asking if Tana had.
Oh. Because we have wondered why our utilities are so high.
So-
Utilities are separate from the phone. Your utilities are high because the master gardeners, that water that's used, and when there's leaks out there and not found,
Mhm.
then it does run considerably higher.
I could see why the OC would have a backup or even the airport, but. And no offense, but I mean,
But
it's just,
that-
it's not like emergency
Right,
situation.
I understand totally what
Their,
you're
their
saying.
backup, so their connectivity comes off of environmental health. Environmental
Yeah.
health, animal control, transfer station and AgriLife all use the same connection.
Yeah.
And they all split that cost. So. Let's see here.
So you couldn't really get rid of our backup without
Without-
getting rid of all of the the
Correct.
backup for all of them.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's a portioned out. and-
So I know I've tried this recently myself and it was a pain, but are there any easier ways to use Wi-Fi calling on your phone?
Wi-Fi calling depends on your internet connection being
Yeah,
there, so.
I found all that out. It says that you got it, but you don't.
And Wi-Fi really depends on the quality of the connection.
Yeah, but it just goes. You can only, like mine, I can only talk on Wi-Fi calling to somebody else with an iPhone.
Oh,
You can't talk to somebody that has a different kind of phone, so that's, I didn't know that when I started trying to do it. In that week that the spectrum was down.
So we asked for, excuse me, 1,400 more for combined for conference and association dues and travel and meals. And otherwise, we just asked for a little bit more. But the big one is the phone bill, I guess.
Yeah.
So I have the numbers here for the extension office, that backup connection costs them $253 a month. Rounded up to 254.
For
How much did
each,
you say?
$254 a month for the extension office portion of the backup connection. Their primary connection, which is an AT&T connection, we have not yet been billed for, but will be a third of, I want to say 900 a month, so.
So the
A third of
transfer
900.
station. The transfer station and ag building both share AT&T also?
Correct.
Okay,
That's actually gonna be, right, it will be split 3 ways.
animal care.
Animal, and it's about 900 a month, split 3 ways, so that is, I can't do the math.
300,
Yeah, 300.
which is 550.
so maybe we should talk to all three of them and see if they think they really need a backup
Yeah, I
for
think
that much money.
we could probably do without it. I'm sure we could do without it.
All right. Well, any
Without
more questions?
backup, environmental health will, and animal control would both be non-functional. They wouldn't be able to do permits or anything.
Right.
To go without backup.
Yeah.
They have issues.
That their software and everything they utilize would be inaccessible without their backup connection.
Without a second. I don't understand why they would be.
If they lose,
wouldn't- it
if they
wouldn't
lose
work
their
if the-
primary connection and don't have a backup connection, they will be completely in operation. They will not be able to function. They won't be able to take phone
Get in
calls.
that truck and go out and look for some badass dogs.
Well, environmental health won't be able to help it do any kind of septic permitting.
Could they say it went down for a day? Could they go to my office and use my computer?
Theoretically,
Or use a Wi-Fi connect, I mean,
They
like a
wouldn't.
hotspot.
they will, the hotspot wouldn't help them out there.
Is, I don't
They
know
go to
much
the airport.
about Starlink, but I know they have commercial.
That their Starlink would cost way more than what we're paying.
That's what my question, if Starlink could be used as a hotspot, temporary for the county to move around if it ever needs.
Starlink actually shows that we don't have access to it here yet.
Okay.
Right outside of it.
I looked at that recently. Oddly enough, there are boats that are using it in the Gulf. Starlink.
Well, they
They're
think
using
Wendy
it in
went to it.
Lamar.
Yes, he has it, but
It's a little bit of.
over in
Lamar.
here, you know, you can pull up a map just like a cell
Yeah, I was
phone.
just
map.
curious if it worked like a emergency.
It shows
situation.
questionable right in here.
Kind of like Shell Ridge Road.
It's not. It's
Well,
not really
that's-
just internet we're
I
delivering.
understand,
now.
understand.
If we were just delivering internet, I could give them a hotspot, but we're doing a lot more than just internet connections.
All right. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Mike is next.
Mr. Gear.
So go
Good
to
morning.
Fund 500 in your book. It should be at the back because they are the enterprise fund.
Page 146.
Oh. Someone's calling us?
126 or
140.
Oh.
145 is
That's it.
revenues. Those are revenues.
Would you like to go over revenues?
You want to talk about your revenues first and then your expenses? Or you?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, whatever your preference is.
Let's go with your revenues first.
Okay, so revenues then, anything that stands out, any questions? I mean, we're very heavily dependent on fuel sales, number one, that's our number one source of revenue. The other three sources are all kind of tied for second or maybe a close third, but the other three sources are going to be hangar rent, land lease, and grants. And depending on where we're at with our grant eligibility, with how much money we have saved in the grant pool, there may be a year that we don't access anything more than just a ramp grant. So the grants are every once in a while, every 3 or 4 years, and it'll be a big lump sum. But they all require a match. That's
Didn't
the
you
thing.
say that since so much stuff is you've done that maybe you're not eligible for? as
I
many?
won't be, we won't be eligible for any big ticket item until 2025.
The question came up yesterday, I think, was, is our insurance company doing anything at all still? Or have the people left because they didn't get?
Yeah,
paid?
that's the case. So Western Steel is off the job. I think Western Steel has completed everything that they were tasked with, but if I needed them to come back out and say adjust a door, I think I'd just have to pay for it. And then the electrical contractor is also off, but I have used the electrical contractor to come back and fix a door that didn't work
What
properly.
is the status of the stuff that was built? Is it all completed or are there things that are half built?
So we got one since the last time we met here for budget, I've got one hangar has been returned. It's a 12-unit T hangar.
Is
And
that
that-
why you have an increase in your hangar rental from?
I'm being optimistic. You mean on projected revenues?
Yes, on
Yeah.
the 860.
That's I'm just being optimistic. If we have everything like we're supposed to have it, that's what we'll make. And a lot of things could happen between now and the end of the year if they come back on the job and finish the 2 hangars that are still they're substantially complete. They're just, they're not ready for anybody to move in yet. And there's still a trench around the hangars where the pavement's been torn up. Pavement has to be tied back in to be able to roll the planes in and out of the hangars. So that's the glaring issue. The other thing is I think they're about 90% complete on the electrical. But so that keep in mind, we're still 3 hangars short of where we were before Harvey. So I don't know how the insurance company or the lawsuit or whatever intends to kind of settle all that out. But if all things were back to normal, that's what we would make. So if we get back all the hangars, then that's what the revenue will be.
So that 25,000 is questionable right now, though.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the ones that you said that are 90%, what kind of, some electrical, I mean,
So the hangar, if you'll consider that it's a rectangle hangar, right? Then it's got 6, each of them have 6 units. There's a trench all the way around the building.
Yeah.
When they poured they used the existing slab, re-engineered it to be a new foundation. So they had to saw cut a skirt around the building and then pour in the new skirt, the new beams. And when they did that, they had to necessarily kind of excavate part of the ramp leading up to the hangar. So we have a 12 to 14 inch gap all the way around.
why don't you try to come up with a number of what it would take to finish those? It's two hangars?
Yes, sir.
Why don't you try to come up with a number that if we did it ourselves,
Sure.
what would it cost us to?
Okay, I can
I
work
think
with,
that's a good idea.
I may have to get Lionel or somebody come and take a look at that, yeah. But if we did that, and then I'd have to I could talk to the electrician and find out about where he's at. I've got a good rapport with him, so. But yeah, I could probably come up with a number.
What would it take for him to finish it?
Right, and now I will say that what's the airport reserve right now? How,
Not much. It
how
would
many
have to be
zeros?
something
Well,
to
I-
borrow from
yeah,
general
right.
I mean, maybe if it's not a big number, maybe we can find it somewhere.
Yeah.
To
What we
get it
need,
done and if it's that close, if they're
Right.
that close to being finished,
right,
Right.
get them back online.
for me, just looking at this as a business manager, I mean, the glaring things for us are the insurance premiums. Utilities, the phones, like we've been talking about with Colin. If you go back to 2017, I mean, these were small numbers. And now, these are big bills to pay at the beginning of every year. We're real close to having that bond paid off, the 86,000 that comes out every year. That's we got 5 more years on that.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so that'll be nice when that happens. We'll be able to we'll be cash flow positive a little earlier in the year, but I try to build the budget so that we, at least on paper, will be cash flow positive. But it really, at some point, it takes me not spending grant money or ramp grant money for us to kind of come in, positive. Last year was tough because we did have some grant projects that required attention. But like I say, if the fuel prices fall through the floor next year, well, we're not going to make as much money on fuel. We'll spend less money, but we're not going to make as much money. So
Maybe
right now
people will fly more though.
they fly more, maybe, yeah, but right now, I mean, our traffic hasn't significantly changed from what it was when the fuel prices were $2, $3 a gallon.
I think if you own an airplane, you're probably not real worried about that.
Yeah, that's true. And again, we don't make really that much money off of the
That
gasoline.
guy's got that outboard with 500 horsepower motors on it.
Right.
Ain't worried about the gas.
Sure. So we're at some point, we're gonna have to get creative in how we keep the airport self-sufficient, if it's gonna stay self-sufficient. At some point, the commissioners may have to consider paying the insurance premium, to keep the doors
I
open.
had a question about that premium. I mean, it's it's over 200%.
Yeah, almost 250.
Yeah, so what's driving that? Is that just the market, or is that because you're getting the buildings?
It's the buildings too.
No, I mean, if you go back to 2017, we had more buildings and we were paying less money.
That's what I was
But
saying.
we've got new hangars and they've got new values, and
Yeah.
that's what has
There's no
caused the
value.
price. That, and we've gone with the windstorm instead of with RPA, and our premiums
And we had
Double,
cheaper
triple.
insurance that wouldn't pay off, so what's a better deal?
Right,
And newer buildings have more value to them also.
sure.
But why is the telephone so high? I mean, what happened between 2020 and 2021 that shot that amount up?
So after Harvey, the airport had an emergency AT&T fiber line installed to that building. That service continued, and at that current contract rate is probably is almost $2,800 a month. That contract is expected to renew and drop that price to $800 to $900 a month. In
When does the
2024,
contract expire right now?
February 2020.
So then couldn't the telephone go down instead of up?
I'm not gonna put that in the budget because it takes active action from y'all. And until y'all approve the new term, that price is not set in stone.
Okay,
and I
so-
can't get-
But you said that we could anticipate maybe what, a $1,900, $2,000 saving per month,
we can
per month.
per month. But at the moment, I can't
Okay.
guarantee that and I can't put that in the budget.
No, and I respect that, but knowing that may be coming,
Right.
is certainly.
And that'll be the same for the courthouse as well, because both of those are on the same term, the same contract. And those will come down from a total of about 5,000 a month to maybe about,
So is that because we basically had to pay for putting the line in?
we had to pay for all the construction, and that's baked into the cost of that cable. In the term of that cable. And so once that expires, those costs are gonna come way down, but until we formally accept the new.
We just need to be sure to get that on the agenda in.
It will be. I'm in contact with our
Okay,
daily change of AT&T reps, it seems. I was talking with one and they went radio silent on me and I got a new call. Oh, I'm your new rep. What happened to the last one? They moved on. It's not very pleasant.
to another climate.
Yeah, that's,
Mike, I think what I heard you say was because of the increased insurance costs and everything this year, you may need help from the general fund to.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I see it. I can't say exactly what it'll be. What was it last year? $10,000, something, but 13 times.
But we will be going into his fund balance to where he's gonna be reducing it to probably nothing where the general fund.
I think we ought to look at, if you can get some numbers on what it would take to.
Yeah.
Finish those two hangars that are at 90%.
Mhm.
Then you would have income off of them coming in.
That help offset what.
And one of the just smallish type thing is utilities. We'll save money as we upgrade to LED around the airport.
Oh, yeah.
We're noticing that we're saving 10-15% on hangars now that have LED lights as opposed to the old mercury halides or whatever they had before. And runway lights is what really gets us. Those things stay on all night long. The beacon's LED now, so we're saving a little bit of money, but as we upgrade the airfield electrical to LED, that'll save some cash. But I'll say this too, and I'll work those numbers up. I'll try to get an opinion on that.
So are your runway lights, are they LED or?
No, they're incandescent, and those, by the way, the cost on incandescent lights has gone up
Oh, yeah.
incredibly over the last several years, just because it's not industry standard anymore.
I'm just curious if there's any way through AEP, potentially like that gentleman that was in contact. If
We
there's
are
some way,
working with them. They're including those in what they're auditing.
they are.
They, in fact, he has been out there and looked at some of your lights,
Good.
the gentleman from AEP,
Okay.
So that might help get some reimbursement.
a little bit of a rebate. Yeah.
If you
It
would
just
look.
depends on the lights have to qualify by whether they're Energy Star or stuff like that. So it's, that's what he's looking at right now. We haven't gotten.
Is he
any-
checking runway lights also though?
I'm not sure what all
That's
he's
what I was
checking,
curious about,
but
the runway lights. would-
if
because
he's
that's like-
changed, if they've changed them and they qualify, they should. work
We
the
haven't
same.
changed them, just a
Okay.
couple. Out of the 250, I think two of them are now LED, that just because we had to upgrade the entire stanchion and everything.
Right.
Now, the beacon, he may not know that our rotating beacon, which stays on all night, or anytime the radio gets clicked 3 times within a 10-second period, which happens all throughout the day, the busier the traffic pattern is, that's LED too now.
Okay, and but even with the LED, we found that they have to qualify as Energy Star and stuff, so there's specific.
Yeah. and I
So,
can- I
but
I have
I will
information on
mention that and make sure.
The only other thing I would just add is, and going back to what we talked about with us putting money out to finish the hangars. As far as I understand it, the airport insurance claim is not closed. So there may be.
A lot of them, none of them are closed.
Okay, well, that's, and I don't have, I don't have any information on anything, but,
Technically,
if
they
it's-
don't
if
pay,
it's not-
they don't pay the people that are working.
right. So
So
it may be that at some point, FPS is back on the job and they finish these projects, so. Uh-huh,
Not unless we're paying for it.
yeah, probably not, so, but anyway,
Why
just,
don't you just get the estimate?
oh, yeah, I will.
And
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
let
Yeah,
Jen.
see if we can come up
Figure
with
it out.
money somewhere,
Yep.
'cause that's not too far from being completed to.
Right. No, it's pretty
get
close,
those
really.
back online.
And I've got enough people on the waiting list to fill them up. So
Oh, nice.
it's revenue just laying on the table.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. What about your other budget?
Oh, EMC, so it'll come in this year. There'll be a lot of money left over. If you want to do the same thing next year, it's up to you guys. I don't think that there's any reason to,
That's
to
page
put-
12, by the way.
Yeah,
Well,
What is,
Emergency.
did you say page 12?
Yes, sir.
Oh, emergency management. But we're leaving 62,000 in there.
Right, he is receiving the stipend that's not near
yeah.
what was budgeted. We initially last year for budgeting for 2023, we were expecting to hire a full-time employee into that position with insurance, retirement,
Bert,
a vehicle. So this is all still the same from 2023.
Because isn't the stipend 20,000 a year?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're leaving 42,000 extra in there.
Well, but think about it in these terms. No, I'm just saying this, but I'm appointed for 1 year. So in January,
Well, that your year goes through April or.
Okay, so
through
April,
through
but-
March.
If
But-
we
but-
decide to hire full-time, then we
Right.
need to have.
you'll have
the
to come,
funds
that'll
in
be new
there.
money if you don't have it in there. But you can, like I say, if you reappoint me, then obviously it'll go back into the general fund. Same thing is true with the $50,000 for outlay for equipment. There's no reason to buy me a vehicle when we have a county vehicle that's available to me.
I mean, if we don't use it every year, it rolls back.
Rolls
into
right
the-
back into the fund.
Just goes into fund balance.
The only thing that'll be used out of that is, again, is the 20,000 for the stipend, and then probably all of the travel, conference association and dues. The EMCs and the emergency management community like to have conferences and meetings and stuff, so there's some travel involved, so.
And you need to keep those connections because
Oh, yeah,
It
have
ju-
to-
it-
we
yeah, it
have to
just
have those.
helps.
That's the coordinator is the operative word in emergency management coordinator. You have to coordinate and maintain positive relationships with people. That's what it comes down to.
The Tatum service rep, I think is his name, Hollister.
Jim Hollister.
Yeah, came up and introduced himself to me at the
Fly-
Warburg's
yeah.
fly-in. We had a nice conversation.
The face of emergency management in our community has changed dramatically in the last 5 months now. So ever since Tatum gave us a CLO, a county liaison officer, it's changed a lot. So where in the past you'd have been reliant on a phone call or an email, and you'd have to have connectivity for those things. That Tatum guy is wired in 3 different ways. He's got a sat phone, he's got Starlink, he's got anything that he needs to be able to communicate with the DCC and Corpus, which then communicates with the DCC.
Thing that I worry about him is maybe you're losing connection with the big guys. You don't have as personal, you might not have as personal connection
Mhm.
as Ricky did with the main guys.
So I've got
Gary.
Chief Nimkid's phone number. I've got his cell phone. I've got it on him personally telling me I can call him day or night for anything. I've got Cowboy number 2 in command. I can call him for anything, but it needs to start. Tatum has reorganized. So there have been some watershed moments that caused Tatum to reorganize. Harvey was kind of the last one. We will likely not see FEMA here in the capacity that they were at in previous events. So we can, Tatum is going to be our first line of communication going forward. And it's going to start with that county liaison rep. And that's honestly, you can play skip a boss with anybody, I guess, at any time, but Tatum is really trying to lay it out that they want things to go through that CLO. And then to the DCC, and then to the region, and then to the SOC in Austin. But again, I can always pick up the phone and call Chief Nim Kidd, but he's gonna look at that like we had a breakdown in communication and chain of command at the
That's
local
what-
level, and there's no reason to do that to Jim. Jim's been stellar, in my opinion. Actually, I recommended him I nominated him for an award at the banquet, and from what I understand, he scored really well on it, but there were some people that did some pretty spectacular stuff, so he's a really good asset for us.
He has been, he's even been in our office and visited with me and actually setting up some training for us on the financial side of it so that we can offer that to anybody who's interested in just making sure that we meet all of our financial requirements for the FEMA and the TINA.
Mike, on 580 on page 12. Capital outlay, $50,000
Yeah.
hasn't been used. What is that actually?
That would be for a vehicle, I imagine.
Yes,
And,
it would.
but again, we've got county owned vehicles that I have access to. If one day you decide that you want to give the emergency management coordinator a vehicle, a retired sheriff vehicle probably work. For the local travel, you'd need something pretty dependable to get all the way up to Fort Worth or Dallas where they have some conferences, but, yeah, it's.
That's what you were referencing a while ago. This is not line we're not really needing right now.
I was gonna ask commissioners, do y'all mind taking that out of the
You
budget?
can take that out for
That's what
2024.
I was-
that's what I was
2024.
gonna ask.
I'd be fine with that.
Can you
Okay.
strike it, please? Thank you. Yeah, you saved a lot. of
You're
money.
walking away with some money today. All right, guys.
Gave us back 50,000.
Thank you.
Right,
Yeah.
right on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Mike, how much time is emergency management taking out of your normal work?
It's been a pretty big bite of my time initially. There's some startup training that I've had to have.
How much this coming year do you think? Maybe 30%?
To this point, yeah, it's been closer to 50%.
Okay.
Any given day, but like I say, a lot of that's just initial training. I've got next week, I'm gonna email you, but I have training next week and the week after. I'll be out in Corpus for 3 or 4 days of those 2 weeks.
I think that's pretty much what we anticipated.
Yeah, but these are one-time
Right, I
classes,
understand.
and then the heavy conference period for even aviation is at the beginning of the year. So June and beyond, I don't have any other conferences scheduled for the rest of the year, so.
Yeah, but you're gonna continue to have training.
Oh, it'll be ongoing. It's just that so much of it's online, and then once you have the initial classroom training out of the way, everything after that's just CE and maintenance.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Doing a good job.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, next. is
Next,
Fund
Mr. Reed.
200 on your tabs.
200.
Fund 200.
What?
That would be page 51. So
What was the
here's
second
the,
thing you just?
page 51 is the revenues.
Good morning,
Sure if you
Mr. Reed.
wanted
How are
to
you?
go over revenue.
I have a question.
Okay.
Under road improvements, ACISD, I'm thinking that might be a big contract with us to do work for them, but we don't show that we anticipate any this year. I mean, in 2024, it doesn't look like we've done anything.
Right. We don't do work from them every year. It's kind of as needed. They haven't told me anything about next year. They probably don't know anything about next year. So, yeah, nothing's on the.
Why would we have the city of Ingleside on there?
Well, they came to us one time wanting something. This was years ago. I can't remember exactly what it was. I came to court, but we got the agreement with them.
So can we do an interlocal? I mean, apparently we could do an interlocal with somebody outside the county.
Apparently. I'm not saying that's strictly legal. I have no
Yeah.
idea, but
We have a different county attorney.
we do. If they ask, I'll check with Jen about that.
So had the school district talked with you last year about a project for this year, and that's why the 50,000 was in there?
Right.
And then, went on.
Um,
I mean, I'm just wondering if you think. it
Yeah.
might be-
you know, I think maybe last year we put it in as we thought we might get something, but it wasn't
Did
for
you
sure.
do it? How long ago has it been that you did that parking lot?
Couple of years ago, probably.
Probably in 2020, because we had an expense
Yeah.
of $147,000.
Yeah. I mean, it was about 5 or 6 parking lots.
You might want to reach out to them because now it's like everybody's new. They don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Norm's
yes, but we deal with Norm and he's still there and he's the guy that
Oh, okay.
is our contact.
He's still there till,
He's retiring.
yeah, he just retired.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Well,
In
heck,
June.
Actually, I guess he's retired. Maybe in September.
But a lot of these, one of the city councilmen from Aransas passed, because David does them for Aransas. The guy said he was trying to figure out if they could secede from San Patricio County and be taken into this county because San Patricio doesn't do anything like that for them.
They have their own
That's a-
emergency management. They have everything. There's this
Yeah.
separate entity.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, Commissioner.
900 of the residents.
yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
They're already thinking about it, you know, but I don't know if it was just a joke or not.
Well, I don't think it's a joke. They've asked me about that several times.
I don't know that we're doing what.
And I don't know, they can do it. I know they can do it, but it may take a lot to do because they have grants and stuff that are in San Pat County.
Let's hope it's a joke.
Yeah.
So, David, under road and bridge services. then?
Yeah. Okay, so let me explain this. We've had this road and bridge services. Basically, we're taking some money from flood control and giving it to road and bridge to do some projects we want because it's different personnel and different equipment. And it just seemed kind of silly to, grab from one hand and put it in the other. So I just took it out. We could put it back if you want, but
So did you
I'm not
budget it in flood?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Did you budget that money in flood then?
Yeah.
So what you're saying, like, say if you get a right of way or easement to cut a ditch in there for drainage, your guys are doing it internally? They were using, that's where this money was actually.
Yeah.
Flood doesn't own any equipment,
Right.
just road and bridge.
Right. As far as the people in the field, they don't know where the money comes from. They just know someone says, go do it, and they go do it,
So you took this 60,000, and put it over there.
Yeah. or
Okay,
left it over there.
more or less.
Yeah. And if you want to take my phones away, that's okay.
No, we need double, yes, double backups. That's
So
true.
you just, so I'm moving on then to page 52. So you just figured in some increases on the gas, oil, lubricants and road materials just because. you
Right.
keep seeing some
Yeah,
costs.
it's a guess, I've talked to Blake about it and this is kind of the number we came up with. The things that I really kind of have control over cost wise is road materials, professional services, equipment. And I try to reduce those things. Keep in mind when I reduce that, especially materials, then we do less work. I mean, it's, what do you want? You want me to spend less money or do you want to get more roads built?
Roads.
Okay, let's raise that up again.
So professional services, what would that, if you had to hire some other?
If I had to get a surveyor out to stake some right of ways or whatever, or if I had to get an engineer out to do some plans or things like that.
Because you used to have to get a vacuum truck sometimes, but now, but that wouldn't have been under professional services.
No.
We don't have it yet. Did we get
We-
that?
We don't, not, I think it's December is what they're talking about now. Well, sometimes we work out a deal with Rockport or Fulton, we'll do some work for them. They'll loan us their back truck.
You and I had a little conversation about the St. Charles Bay boat ramp about maybe having to a parking lot about core sampling maybe because there's been some cave in or maybe washout from underneath scouring.
Right.
With that.
That would
money-
be professional services.
Okay, okay. And you would have money in the budget for that right now?
Will I have money in the budget? Uh, this is anticipated stuff that I have no idea what will come up.
Okay.
Things come up.
Okay.
The doing cores for that parking lot would be something that just comes up, I don't know what it would cost, but a few $1,000s probably in that neighborhood, maybe 5.
Yeah. One of the issues out there, I think, is underwashing.
I think so. Yeah.
So in order to stop that, you're gonna have to bulkhead it, basically.
Yeah. I'm not sure what caused the problem. It may be that the sheeting is too low. Maybe it needs to be. I don't know. Maybe some core samples will help us figure that out. So, but anyway, this, what we spend money on often, it's something that comes up that we can't anticipate. So we have to kind of plan for it, but things happen, we get floods and hurricanes and tornadoes and.
And your motor vehicle repairs and maintenance went down significantly. Is that because a lot of the equipment is new?
Yes. And I did reduce a little bit the new equipment for next year. Not a lot, but equipment is expensive. My equipment is expensive.
When you have to buy easements, where is that in the budget?
Well,
Okay.
sometimes it's special projects.
Okay.
Hopefully we find grant money for it, but I do often get easements for free. Yesterday's easement was a $10 easement.
Where's that in here? No, I'm kidding.
I was a little worried about that one. Cause her grandson has applied for a change of venue and they asked me to sign it, give some testimony on it. I said, man, I'm gonna mess up her evening.
So you didn't do it? Not yet.
Signed it, so. All right, any other questions? I mean,
So I want to talk about a different.
You wanna go to flood now,
oh,
which is just a few pages,
Which one?
Okay.
page 56.
So we're
Revenue.
running early and there's nobody behind me. Is that true?
What page were you saying?
Yeah, the sheriff behind you.
56.
So that easement yesterday, does it go all the way from the Copano Heights property line?
It does not. There's a property owner between McClester and Copano Heights, and I have that easement as well, but I didn't get it in time for this agenda. It'll be on the next agenda. Okay. So, flood control is kind of an interesting department, I guess. Some of you were not around when it was created. It is part of the Road and Bridge Acts. And originally it was made for me, my one-man department as the drainage engineer for the county 15 years ago. And at some point along the line, probably 2016, the court appointed me the floodplain administrator. That used to be done out of environmental health. Now, they didn't give me more funding for that. Of course, back in that time, 2016, there wasn't a lot to do. There wasn't a lot of development. There wasn't a lot of houses going up. So it wasn't a big deal to use road and bridge money for the little expenses that we had or use flood control. Since Harvey, we've seen a big increase in development and lots of building permits, lots of subdivision permits, lots of review of those kind of things. And all of that money is still being spent out of flood control. Because that's the only place I had to get money. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily the best place to do it, but, or the most legal place to do it, but it's what we have. A lot of our criteria that we have for development is based on what FEMA says we need to do. So that kind of makes me feel like drainage, flood control is part of that. Of course, the department has grown. It's not a one-man department anymore. You know, it's several people. I don't know if that trend of new development is going to continue. It's probably slowed down significantly since, the last few years, but it's still more than it was 10 years ago or 8 years ago. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just kind of bringing this to your attention.
Well, David, you still don't, if you're using labor, you're still just doing a job order and moving the money from one fund to the other.
Yeah.
If you have, I mean, there's people probably every day in your office that work on something to do with flood. How do you pay them? Just road and bridge, or do you?
I have several people in the office that are paid partly through road and bridge, partly through flood control. I don't know that it's the exact percentage, but it's close.
So the new people that were added, like the new crew, did they go to flood control?
They do.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So are they in flood control 100% or no, they're a portion?
100%. Yeah, but like Megan and Elle before her were paid through both funds because they dealt with both.
And you a little bit?
Yes, I
And
deal
are the
with both.
commissioners too?
Out of Road and Bridge.
Okay.
Not flood.
But
You
thanks for
probably
that
would- You would
explanation.
probably would say it's you, but I'm thinking you're pretty lucky on employees, because Megan is turning out pretty good.
She is. She's a sharp girl.
Yeah.
You'd probably say it was you or your staff that
Yeah.
helped pick them out.
I picked out Megan, I picked out Elle, but I had some misses as well.
Well,
Just,
Elle's
and
turning out
Blake
to be a really
is very good.
I picked out Blake. Pat myself on the back.
And Trotter seems to be pretty good too.
No comment on that one.
No comment.
He can be a challenge sometimes.
Trotter can be a challenge, but he is a smart young man. Absolutely. Y'all have questions for me? Like, how long am I going to stay here?
Until we get the drainage
We
and
won't
the
even, we don't
H&H
want to
modeling
talk
done
about
at
that.
least.
I'm sorry.
I said, till we get the drainage fixed and the H&H modeling done,
Yes,
at least till then.
at least till the end. Absolutely.
All right.
And I'm glad you've got a lot of the equipment. I'm gonna say, it looks like upgraded equipment because when you have equipment breaking down, your guys aren't productive.
Yeah,
And that-
yeah. So do I have a few minutes to talk?
Yeah.
Sheriff's still not here. So one thing that I've talked about with the judge and with Vanessa at the city is the way we do drainage in this community probably should be looked at a little more carefully. We have the county doing the county stuff and the city doing the city stuff and Fulton doing whatever they can do. I think a consolidated drainage department of some sort, some way to be structured, I have no idea. Or I have ideas, but I don't know the best idea yet. I think it's a good thing for the community
To consolidate them.
to consolidate them somehow, whether it's a drainage district or a different department that answers to all the entities, but something that everybody's doing the same thing. And maybe you have this, let's call it a department that deals with the designs of new projects, deals with the construction of new projects, deals with the maintenance of the projects that we already have and the projects that we already get. It's it's kind of ambitious to do, and whether we can get all the entities on board to do this, I don't know, but I think it's worth a shot. I think when the stormwater fund was first created, there was kind of that vision of being a group that takes care of everything. Is that correct, Commissioner? Y'all were here. Only you two,
But
I
we've
guess.
kind of always, in the past, we had more of a struggle trying to get particularly Rockport to adopt, like when we raised the height of
Right.
what we required for slabs and they didn't.
Right.
It seems like we're in a much better climate for cooperation with them than we have been in the past.
I agree with that.
And there was also, if I remember, there was a significant concern of who's under what law they would run, because drainage is different than dogs. And the county has a certain amount of authority,
Right,
and the city has considerably more authority.
right.
So
They do.
if I remember correctly, whenever Commissioner Smith was here, that was one of the things he and I talked about, was who would be in charge if something like that happened.
Right.
And, you'd think it'd be the county because it has more drainage if we took all that on. But the city has more authority. So, and it would make
Right.
it easier to get
There,
property, but also be a much better funding source.
there certainly are details to figure out.
Yeah.
No question about that. But I think conceptually, it's a good idea. I think that Rockport is probably more on board with something like that than they've
Yeah.
ever been.
Especially now.
So David, have you talked with Vanessa much about, we have the deal with ETJ that, that was one of those things that
Yeah,
you never could
yeah.
get working just right, but
That problem kind of has gone away since Vanessa came in. They're looking at that they don't do anything in the ETJ except when their utilities are serving.
Okay.
Right.
And then they go
I
with
kinda
their,
wondered, since they can't annex anymore, why there even is an ETJ.
yeah. And I will point out that becoming part of the city is not necessarily a bad thing for the community. This does give more building codes that have to be followed and things like that the county can't require. So, it's kind of a good thing. I mean, let's annex more property and let the city instill their building codes and get better development.
A lot of people that live out there don't want to be in
I understand.
there, more than you think.
And no, I get that. And I'm not suggesting that we just uniformly say it's all the city now. But it does have some benefits to doing
Well,
that.
it goes back to having the whole county under one police system. you
Sure.
know.
A lot like
Talked
that,
about
yeah.
For years, some
Yeah.
places it's worked and some places it hasn't worked.
Right.
Were you thinking of, I want to say, I'm gonna call it a district, but a flood control department for the county could work similar to the road and bridge? I mean, you have basically operate independently in a lot of manners.
Right.
And that's kind of what you're envisioning too, or?
Right. I would envision it to be a lot like the road and bridge in that they are there to implement the policies that the various entities want to put in place. And
And we very well could take the flood district that we have right now and just restructure it to do that.
That's what I was wondering.
In the meeting, Vanessa talked about putting an LLC or something
LGC.
and doing something like that, but you could restructure what we have just by changing the people that are on the board and things like that. Possibly, and do the same thing in a lot simpler.
Call it like the flood authority or drain
Yes.
authority.
yes,
But something that you mentioned a while ago, and I think everybody else knows it, but a lot of people don't realize that when the flood was created and we had an election to do it, we didn't create a tax, we just moved it from road and bridge
correct.
to there. And a lot of people think when that election took that it was created and it created a new tax, but it really did just move it.
That's
From
true.
one rate.
And Commissioners Court has complete control over what that tax rate is. You know, it's not something that we independently decide to
That
raise
tax rate
taxes.
is capped, isn't it?
I don't know.
One of the things I remember is somebody had said that you could never go above X. But
Yeah.
I have never seen that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jackie, do you know?
I would have to look at it and make sure, Commissioners. It's never really been an issue with this because we've never gone to that point, but I will verify and make sure. But I know we look at the expenditures for flood, and that's kind of how we determine how much has to come out of road and bridge to go to flood.
Well, I know whenever we talked about adding the department and everything, at the time, we didn't have a real indicator of how much time that department was actually going to take out of roads
Right.
and bridge and put in drainage. Because I remember not last budget, I think the previous budget, we talked about this and you had said basically that you have no idea, but you knew, and at that time, you were wanted to be able to move over into seal coating at the time. But I don't think you ever really did that, did you? They just went to bridge and to drainage and,
Right.
yeah, so you know, that whole thing needs to be looked at under David's guidance. So we can get a better idea, because everywhere you go now, you see drainage out working.
And we did include a new crew, and I
Right.
believe it was last budget.
Last
Right. So, he does have a new four-man crew on the drainage that is charged to drainage.
That leads me to ask the question, if we created, say, a drainage department how much would it grow? The government, or like, how would it change? I know you have so many people right now that are pretty much dedicated to that, so you'd probably be shifting some people, right? But you wouldn't have enough people to actually, you would probably need an engineer focused strictly on that.
Right.
And I was just not to hold you anything, just trying to get an idea, just roughly what you personnel wise you think.
You know, I don't know. You know, I'm thinking of this as not a county per se department,
Right.
but a multi-jurisdictional department. And so you have Rockport and Fulton and the NAV district picking up part of this cost as well. And maybe they have personnel that moves over, you know, that this is just ideas. We've had some discussions in stormwater about having a workshop specifically to get on the same page as far as drainage criteria. And I think we're looking at August at this point, but you know, this could be a good opportunity to talk more about
I think getting
drainage.
getting the regulations the same in every jurisdiction.
Yeah.
To me is the first big step.
And really identifying what that's gonna take care of, you know, is it gonna take care of collection boxes that are off of just streets? Or is it gonna just take open spaces, or what? I mean, it's got, a lot of it needs to be decided, because.
Sure, yeah. Is this roadside ditches or is it just cross-country ditches? Yeah. All right,
Sheriff here.
sheriff's here, so.
Hi,
Thank you, David.
Thanks,
Thank you,
David.
What's the number?
Page 34.
good morning, Sheriff.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the detention center.
We can start there, doesn't matter.
32, 33, 31. 31. What's the round number? 31.
Which one are we gonna do?
See you tonight. All right, good morning, Sheriff. How's, so I got your email. I'm sure everybody. I'll get his email about, the bailiffs. You want to add another halftime or part-time bailiff?
The trouble we're having, we're not finding applicants for part-time. In
Uh,
2010, 2009, when we switched and went to that, we had 2 or 3 part-time bailiffs that were working 15 hours a week and having more time off than they were in court. We pulled a survey. Michael had a report that the county court meets on the average this year 4 days a week. Bianchi's in session for anywhere from 2 hours to 6 hours, 7 hours.
Yeah.
That's the busiest court as far as throughout the week, numerically the days. And that's on an average, and that's going to change because I don't know if he brought that report to y'all. We were having a discussion somewhere recently that September 1st, the jurisdictional limit in county court becomes unlimited for civil cases. And he will start picking up some of the civil load that the district judges haven't got to. And you heard Bauer yesterday talking about just the criminal docket is backed up and it has hindered their ability to even move on the civil. Well, Bianchi, I envision is going to get even busier than he has been. And they're going to be for duration cases, I think that last longer than what we've typically seen him doing the 4 days out of the 5 this year. On top of the court deal with Bianchi, and that's, I alluded to that in the letter because that's the busiest statistically, but the most time consuming is going to be the district court. And if y'all been up here on a Wednesday and I've taken Commissioner Russo outside the parking lot on a Wednesday a month ago where we had 3 jail vans in the parking lot with 3 detention officers watching the 3 vans because we had 28 inmates that we brought up here for the docket call and announcements. That's become the standard on at least every other Wednesday. Tomorrow, come back here and there will be 2 district judges aside from the court going on next door for the murder trial. Bauer touched the surface yesterday afternoon talking about an arraignment last week where nearly 80 cases were heard with 1 plea entered. Everybody in the jail seemed to be content to sit and wait because they know we're not getting to them. That's not even touching the civil. And she talked about the bond cases. We have a murderer, the oldest murder case that we have, that gentleman is out on bond. I don't know under the current system when we're going to get to that. But on Wednesdays, we end up with anywhere from 5 to 6 officers in this courthouse with the bailiffs that we can muster together and 5 or 6 detention officers that we've taken out of the jail are called in. I've got a report as well showing the transports that the jail has done this year. And I'm throwing this in now because it all adds to this whole deal of the bailiffs and the staffing between detention officers and bailiffs and what we have available. But we have logged through April, have logged 6,300 miles, the detention officers for transports. Today, we have 2 detention officers in Arkansas picking up an inmate on a bench warrant. Those are bench warrant transports.
And you have to have 2 to transfer.
If
across-
we're
across state
moving
lines.
somebody out of state, yeah, it'll leave one of the detention officers who is certified as a gun toter. We prefer 2 going. Sometimes it'll be 1 armed and 1 unarmed. But we'll move 2 on a transport because you're gonna have times where you're fueling a vehicle and somebody's going to the bathroom or we're staying overnight or it's just, we went to Puerto Rico last month. Flew 2 officers to extradite a gentleman back here to stand trial for a case that was 20 years old. We are running everywhere, picking people up, but within the detention center alone, last week and in the last 2 weeks for this trial next door, we did bench warrants on 2 different people. We drove over 600 miles to pick up one of them and we've got to take him back. This is the stuff that's going on with what Bauer and Oster talked about yesterday and the backlog and trying to get this resolved. The applicants we're getting for bailiffs, we brought one on 3 weeks ago, who retired from the sheriff's office months ago. She worked 29 hours week before last, and she didn't want it. She said, I didn't sign up for this. I thought 10, 12 hours and her husband's wanting to go traveling in July. One of them that has Mick retired from the sheriff's office, who's been in the county court for a couple of years, has now decided to do the reverse snowbird routine. And during the summer, he goes back north and he'll come back to us in the winter. And Charlie Phillips with his retirement is out. And the applicants we're getting right now, we're asking them to work 29, 30 hours a week. They're looking for a full-time job. That guy that's got that license wants a full-time deal with benefits. And we've got those applicants, but we're not getting the people for the 10 and 12 hours because this court deal has grown into, we can't find enough part-time people to fill out a calendar for the demand that we're seeing in county district court. The district judges, like she said, have given us additional jury docket days this year as well as next year. And a lot of that'll hinge on Amanda's caseload and her ability to get prepared. We can bring in all the visiting judges we want, but the rub's going to become in the middle of whether or not she can get the 2 felony prosecutors can have cases ready to prosecute. At this time, counting the guy that's on trial next door, 5 people are in the detention center on murder warrants in Aransas County.
The other thing along with that, that I think you and I talked about before, but this is the lower part of this is the tip of the iceberg. That's going to get a lot worse because the way that Aransas County is growing and everything, we're not always getting the cream of the crop. And but the next year is going to be worse than this year. And there's no reason to believe that it's not going to continue to get where the sheriff's department is required to do things that are way beyond their manpower. So along with needing the bailiffs and the manpower there, you know, long-term, your staffing is really going to take a hit if you don't get some.
We're already involved and engaged in the last year, and y'all can look at the receipts or auditors can pull them up. When Valerie was still at the transfer station, she called one day and wanted to know, could I send an officer out in the afternoon at 4:15 to stand by while they move the money from the booth to the office. I thought, seems odd, but then when I found out how much money they're taking in out there, typically because they're closed Saturday, Sunday, on Tuesdays, huge load, and Saturday, everybody's out there. And yeah, needed an officer. So we picked that up as a routine that anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes in the afternoon out yonder, if as time allows, and you do that, and the election deals and the tax collections and the Live Oak Elementary, the school, that traffic mess hasn't got any better over the years. And so we're pulled away, but this whole deal now with the courts has added to it. And we're to the point now, if we can't get the applicants part-time, we're going to have to use off-duty deputies and pay them overtime to bailiff.
Sheriff, how many part-time bailiffs do you have right now? I know I talked to that one, she's, like you said, she's putting in a lot more hours than she intended. And I guess how many part-time do you have right now? And by hiring a full-time bailiff, how much is that gonna change your need for part-timers?
We just had 3 part-time bailiffs right now, 2
Okay.
for the district, and then Sharon does the.
Yeah.
Because
county.
But there
Because
are
Mick-
4
Mick-
openings.
There's 4. Mick has gone,
Yeah.
back north. He would
Okay.
be the 4th, but those 4 can't even manage. There have been, it's not an isolated deal. Tomorrow, we will have 2 district judges here and county court going.
Yeah. You would still need, well, I guess what I'm asking, you would still need the number of part-time you have,
Yes, sir.
but the additional full-time bailiff would kind of take some of the stress off of trying to fill the vacancies or the.
So if you had a full-time, maybe you could cut down on the part-time or.
The full-time would basically be a bailiff for the county court, because he's gonna be used
Okay.
more in the county court system than he would be in the district. We don't really have an issue right now, as long as those 2 guys stay in district. But the county court is harder to cover. It's more time. We need someone that's gonna be available to basically be in here and do that. Both courts want 2 bailiffs at all times.
And right now, your
sometimes
part-
we require it.
Right now, your part-time bailiff in county court is putting in 30+ hours, right? Or,
He put in
I mean,
29
limited to
last
30,
week.
yeah,
29 hours.
And
29
we take over
hours.
30 for part-time,
right.
And I
which
mean,
is just growing every.
and with Mick going back north, now he'll come back in the winter, but that's,
Few months.
you need 6 people on Wednesdays here because that's become routine.
Yeah.
And so we're bringing deputies off the street to do this. And While they're in here, they're not doing what we hired them to do, patrol and respond to calls and take reports. But that's where we've been backed into a corner, and that's been our response to try to make sure the courts are protected.
One day, I think I counted there were 8 deputies in there, so right at 7 or 8 deputies one day. One of these district courts was going on and county court at law and everything.
We're overflowing to a different room and county courts in session and
So instead of them being out on the street, they're having to be supplementing the bailiff work.
true. And the expectation of the district judge is to have detention officers in the courtroom. You know,
Same problem there.
it is. It takes them out of the detention center where Mondo, you know, we're staffed at a level to provide services in there. And you've spent a few hours over there to see what goes on. And I encourage y'all to go. It's not just a rectangular box with, there's always something going on in there. We're running 6 vans now that you'll go down there some days and there won't be a van in the parking lot.
Yeah.
We'll be hauling to federal court. We'll be hauling to the hospital, to the doctor's offices, or doing transports, in-state transports for these bench warrants because of this backlog. And I don't know if they're bench warranted just to push us to the limit and see whether or not we don't produce somebody and then, oh, we're going to reset this case. But we're providing the people, we're bringing them so that the courts aren't going to say, well, we couldn't get a witness here that was in Arkansas or wherever. And then we've got the dilemma of taking them back as well after we're through with them. But that's been the most trying deal that's affected both the detention center and the staffing of patrol deputies is trying to carry this court system. And
Are these, the cases that we're doing right now, are they strictly or mostly that backlog that built up a few years ago? And that, is it never got really worked down, or are they becoming more current cases that are?
some of it, the backlog started the storm. And then the pandemic shutting down and everything going virtual didn't help. But I think the type of cases has changed, Commissioner, more than anything else. 15 years ago, and I ran on the deal of it's about drugs and drugs are driving the burglaries and some of the assaults. You can pick up the paper now and you look at grand jury indictments, there's a lot of sexual assault, family violence issues. Now we're not seeing, we had murders back then. We had people using the Castle Doctrine in some of these deals. But to have 5 people in the detention center in Aransas County on murder warrants that go back 2 years, some of them, you know, we can't get them to the top of the list because the law requires these sexual assaults get preferential settings in the district court sometimes. So they get bumped. We're having cases for some of the newer stuff, Commissioner, that occurred in the last 6 or 9 months, but because the legislation and law requires, and so they get a preferential sitting. And we bump these murder deals back and they're still sitting there costing us money.
How much is a bailiff position loaded?
So I did run the numbers for an entry level at the sheriff's office with the benefits comes to 73,429.
And that would be one aspect that we threw out. If we assigned him to county and when county court's not going, he'd be available to step into district and
So 73,429, what is that now?
73,429.
Oh, 73,000, okay, yeah.
and that just takes some of the burden off. That way we'll know we're going to have somebody in that court. And if we can still get the 4 part-time, Andy left today on vacation.
We'll be out for over a week, so I have an investigator in there.
So I know Charlie Phillips, he did a lot.
Charlie did a lot. Yep.
Apparently, Gavin doesn't want to do bailiff.
He has, no, his time, he hadn't inquired about it. I think that load, and I don't know if Charlie in the last 2 years, if he'd have been active, would have been in the courts much either, trying to keep up the load. Everybody's load has changed. The limits have gone up. Rental property in this community has grown and the need for the evictions as well. But
And again, you know, I'm gonna ask you about gas and lubricants. You're saying about you're putting a lot more travel expenses. That explains there's a big increase in your fuel expenses, right? I
well, the
guess.
fuel we cut the budget some, but the issue, last year we raised it because of the fear that it's going to go to $5 a gallon. And had it gone there, that's what we would have needed. And, you know, we've drawn down the Federal Reserves and at some point, We're gonna have to replenish those, and I think that's when we're gonna see the gas pump move the other way.
So that's why you're able to, even with all the more travel, you're able to cut the fuel costs, or it went down some.
We cut some of that out because I thought it was, looking at this year's run rate and last year's, I thought, well, we'll trim some out of there, but I didn't want to get overly optimistic and cut it way down and then next year come back and say, gee whiz, at 450, I can't cover it. We can roll the dice and pick a number, that's y'all's call. We got to start somewhere, but I'd rather had the money set aside and cover, because the additional travel has gone up and these the bench warrants and what the jail's doing running around. I mean, 6,300 miles just for bench warrants in the jail. That didn't count medical transports or the regular transports to courts, to doctor's visits. That's
Yeah.
just,
How much has your mileage increased as far as actual number of miles covered? Because I know that we talked about that one time too. But that's a good measure. If they increase 30% or 5% or reduce 5% or whatever, that kind of helps you a little bit. But
I do not have a number for the miles that
that
we
would be really
driven last
interesting
year.
to know. Because I think you probably already know it, but I think. the
Well,
court would be
it's out there
amazed.
somewhere. We should be able to get it through the pumps at Road and Bridge, I would imagine.
Right, and I'm sure that the court would be interested to know just how many miles the total mileage that the sheriff department puts in, because I think we'll all be surprised at how many miles it is.
Well, you're right.
We've got we got the second smallest land county in Texas, but I bet you we're right up there with some of the middle.
Well, as far as activity, we're nowhere near smallest. I mean,
Sheriff, before you answer that, I just want to remind the court and then you and your staff that if you're going to talk about like sensitive security information,
Oh, yeah,
we'll have to go into closed session on Friday.
Okay.
So we could continue this.
Yeah.
We'll go through your budget now, but if there's really areas of concern, we'll have a closed session on Friday
That's a good idea.
and so that we're not
Well,
blasting our vulnerabilities to the world.
what I was looking at too, if you're asking for a bailiff position, you've cut your fuel quite a bit and you feel pretty confident about that, your fuel costs operations. So really you're asking for another 16,000 over your actual budget from last year to fund a bailiff.
The bailiff would come out of a courthouse security fund, or would it come out of mine? I mean,
Well-
where does that go? Where does Donnie charge off to us or?
Your department.
Okay,
Yes, sir. But on the bailiffs, if you had one full-time with county court, that would come out of county court at law.
Oh,
Oh,
but it's still an officer.
yeah, he
Correct.
would,
Still requires an officer.
What we do currently have it in place,
you're correct.
any of the part-time bailiffs, they log whatever court they work in and we charge it to that specific court. But there are days where they have to cover Donnie's, if he's out on vacation, so they will, and then that does go to the sheriff's budget or training or something of that nature, it will go to the sheriff's budget.
part of the discussion, when I looked, I thought, who's this part-time employee? And she said, that's where we're charging off. Cover for Donnie when a deputy steps up at the desk and is in there for the day or the week when he's on vacation or off.
And then if you do have a full-time bailiff for county court at law that they are requesting, I mean, there could be a day that person would fill in for Donnie and it would go to that budget,
Yeah.
or that person would fill in for
I
district
mean, I
court.
don't
and
think
would
we have
charge
a
it to
choice
district
but
court.
to put one in there.
that's what
And
I'm-
if you had, like I said, it would seem like if you did slow down, well, you maybe would just cut back on your part-time hours. So,
Right.
yes, I agree.
True,
with
and,
that.
and long term, we get caught up in a year and a half, 2 years. Everybody's already talked about the second floor of that courthouse. Are you gonna put a person on the second floor? And this would be something that down the road, you envision, okay, he's assigned to county court, which is upstairs, and he could serve as your person on the second floor when he's not in the courtroom. But there's a lot of benefits to it, but the biggest deal was it gives us a little relief while we're calling through applicants and try to drive that number down, back down to where, like the one that we hired, she's back in a range of 12 to 15 hours a week and not something that's consuming 2/3 of her week. We're
And
just,
that part-time pay is gonna offset the cost of a bailiff also. Of
Right.
a full-time bailiff. If she's cutting her hours down, that's,
yes, sir.
yeah.
A little bit, right.
Yeah.
maybe.
Right now, we're actually short in county court because they want 2 bailiffs. And sometimes that's a requirement because we do have inmates or we have kind of a.
In county court or
high
district
profile-
court?
Sorry.
In county court or district court, they want to.
we've put two in all. Now,
Oh, okay.
Bianchi has been a little more understanding, but then again, he realizes that that vulnerability is the same in his court as in district court. He's not. He sits on a committee with them and they meet in Sinton monthly. And he follows, I think, the guidelines that they set in general, but would be more forgiving if we got in court this afternoon or tomorrow and I had one bailiff. He may call it to my attention, but he's not going to cancel court. And I don't know what the district judges will do. I know what they'll do if we don't have a detention officer there.
Didn't y'all just recently have an incident really where you needed a couple of,
Yes, we did have an incident in district court. Luckily, there was two bailiffs at that time, but still we had to, myself and Donnie had to run into the front.
that's what I thought.
There, because you can't leave the judge.
Right.
A judge has to be protected until that judge is escorted out of the interior chambers or find a locked door. So you got one person struggling with someone. But that's the case for county court. You could have that situation
Yeah.
here, and we only have one person right now. Sometimes I have to have me come over or someone else come assist her on some sort of cases. Parental cases where their child's being taken away. That's not taken lightly. Some people get very upset. One person here, you have a hard time covering it by themselves.
Like I said, the volatility of what is covering county court is probably greater than what we see in district court. A lot of those people over there have played the game, and they know the routine, but yeah, you get in here and he's hearing more family law stuff.
Well, and I know y'all see it every day that since Harvey and all the other deals, the personality of people in general has went downhill as far as their behavior. It's like Elle was telling us yesterday about people almost getting in fights and stuff when they come to dump their trash and
Been out there
you know,
doing criminal
anywhere you
suspect, yeah,
go,
at the dump.
anywhere you go, you kind of need to expect that you're gonna be run into somebody that's in a bad, that you never had before Harvey. And I know we had a lot of other things, but everything piled up. It's changed the personality of people in general drastically, it seems like to
I
me.
agree with that.
The Pandemic did not help at all.
That's what I say, all of them combined
Well,
have just really pushed people over the top.
Well, and a societal change, I saw a report 3 weeks ago and they were talking about why crime they thought had gotten worse. And the number one response people said was there's no accountability. And we're not getting to them. They're sitting in jail. And if nothing's going to happen to me, who cares? And
Have to go back into building a Gallus up there.
well,
Breaking
and
up
the
there.
other side of that
Bottom
too, a lot of the sheriff's time is spent in the city, assisting the city officers as needed, as the city officers sometimes come to the county to assist. Law enforcement is not a unit. It's a bunch of units.
it is. And in the public, you'll see a lot of the dual response and assistance, but you're not going to see it too much in the courtroom.
No.
My concern is, will I even see them in the courthouse if we have an alarm? My hope is that, yes, they would respond and realize that even though it's a county property, we could use the assistance. It's just the dynamics of, even though people have expanded, Fulton's gone to 2 officers, the school district has gone to 4. Everybody has grown, but the population has grown. The rental properties, the trailer parks, the people coming and going, the caseload has still remained pretty constant. We're still running 750, 800 calls per service a month in the sheriff's office. And those are generated calls by the public. That's not stuff that we initiate on traffic stops or investigations that we've got going because of complaints and observations that we made. So that hasn't lightened any, but it's bottlenecking at the court system. And we have too many people that have been in that detention center for over 450, 500 days. At the same time, we're holding on a state level for mental health commitments. We've had 3 and 4 most of the year for the last 2 years that have been waiting on a bed somewhere. We had a lady that waited over 700 days for commitment to Vernon. And that's that's not, we don't control that, but we're seeing where a lot of money was allocated to build a center as close as Victoria, which may help. But that's gonna be 2 years out before we see that. But some of that, you're thinking help's coming, but when it all adds up, the mental health, the court stuff, I need to get the deputies back on the street, and I don't need to use them on overtime, bailiff and in courtrooms if we can find a way to hire some of the people that are applying.
So Sheriff, did the bill pass that was up that was gonna have the state reimburse us for time in excess that took
Paper,
the,
paper
the
ready.
prison system to
There's always
pay
been,
people up?
legislation's always been there that if it went over 40 days, that we were to be reimbursed. I don't have that problem now. Texas Department of Corrections is responding pretty quick. Once we get them
Okay.
paper ready, they're picking them up and
I
in
just
8 to
read
10
something
days.
on the listserv, sounded like there was a new bill to deal with that, or maybe something to.
I think they were wanting to raise the rate and there may be people that are having an issue, but the issue is probably more with them not getting the packet ready. And they're counting that in their delay, saying, gee whiz, it's taking forever. But we've gotten pretty good about getting the packets together. And once we get the thing in the right, and that's, we assigned somebody to do that years ago. And because it was, you'd be waiting and waiting and they say, well, we didn't get this. And they won't tell you they didn't get something until you ask. But we got the packets in a more complete form and submitted. And so the clock starts. But most of the time, once we get the packet in and get it approved, they're picking them up in 8 and 10 days. I get that report monthly. It's part of the jail commission report, shows how many on any given day of the week were paper ready and how many were picked up. And it seems to be rolling a whole lot better in that regard. Some of them just get out too soon and come back because they've sat here. They get credit for time served. So we get somebody and he's sentenced to 5 years, the Texas Department of Corrections, but he's been in my jail for 2 years waiting to get to court. They're going to give him credit for the 2 years. He's eligible for parole at 25% of his sentence. So in less than 2 years, he's eligible. He gets there, gets processed and gets sent home. And we paid for that. Same as if he'd gone to prison, but we don't get to bill them for that because we couldn't get him to the courts. That's another reason to speed up the court deal because we're losing money on the front end of this deal, housing people that get credit for time served against their sentence in Texas Department of Corrections.
Is your license and weight deputy able to serve full-time in his main duty or?
He stays busy doing just what he does. And you're going to see, I think if you look at Dupnick's report, the citations issued and the revenue collected off the wear and tear on the roads has gone up.
Okay.
The only thing that we're still asking for there, and I'll go back to the prosecutor's office. He actually wrote a brief to submit for an AG opinion to see whether or not we really have to have a licensed and weight officer to turn the lights on at the weigh station. We were hopeful that we'd get something in the legislation this last year and it didn't happen. If we are working on an MOU with the Texas Department of DPS and through their CVW group, we're licensed, we're certified. Why can't we turn the stinking light on? We own the facility, but we can't turn the lights on. And so you can't direct traffic in for weight.
You can't.
No, sir. It has to be you have to be a trooper that's licensed in commercial vehicle operation. That enforcement group, and the one that lives here that put in a lot of time in the last 6 months in the county has applied to go join a new boat group they're forming. So we're going to lose probably the most productive licensed weight officer that we had here in the last 6 months that DPS had. But Ronnie has stepped in and done a real good job. He's very well versed in what he does, knowledgeable.
He was real good when he was here before.
Yes, sir.
At that.
And he actually wrote a brief and we took it to the prosecutor and asked if she would submit it for an AG opinion, citing, some different statutes
So
and
the cases from out there, and I know we're switching from one department to the other, but
it's all manpower.
when they're getting fined, I know at one time we had a big problem with, we were budgeting what the maximum penalty could be, but we had the issue with the judges weren't fining anywhere near that.
Well, judges and attorneys, you had a turnover and different philosophies. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had, but at what level is Judge Dupnick or whoever they go through finding the people that are found guilty of?
I've seen she sent out a report, and I don't know if I have it with me, by officer, how many citations, down to the point of how much revenue has been paid. The other report,
I don't have it. I never.
She
we
shows-
get that.
by officer, the potential revenue and what has been paid and what hasn't been paid. And talking about Mr. Crisp. And looking at the report, he had written more citations for license and weight than the entire DPS crew has written in Aransas
He was
County.
kind of like that before when he worked here.
I
But
mean,
that was a flaw that I saw in there. Whenever I think y'all did a list that showed what the maximum fine was, and we would budget that. But reality was the judge was gonna fine them a fraction of that amount. So it kind of,
There were a lot of.
it's really
dismissals.
kind of like when you budget
Mhm.
federal prisoners.
Because
you
I
budget
think it
too
is
high.
in statute too, that it's at the judge's discretion on fine.
Yeah.
amounts.
But, we just have to figure out what reality is. I think, I don't like to see us budget way above what the reality of what the judge is gonna do.
And then depending on the type of citation too, the state gets half of it.
Actually, yeah, the commercial vehicle, a lot of it does go to the state. Dupnick has a report. She keeps it. She issued it
Yeah.
a month and a half ago, and I
Do
didn't
they
bring it
all
with me.
go to her?
Yes, sir.
All the license and weight. But years ago, yeah, we'd gone over, we'd experienced a turnover not only in the judges, but in the prosecution. And yeah, you saw this
Yeah.
roller coaster on what was being cited. And then we still have occasionally some disagreement about, is the charge legit? And we had a sit down with the county attorney's office and showed him, oh, he said, I didn't read on down there, Ronnie does have the authority to do that. And so there's a learning curve every time we change personnel. But Ronnie, to Mr. Dupnick's question, it stays busy on the road doing that. We haven't. He hadn't been in the courtroom, I don't think, as a bailiff.
I called him in one time,
Okay.
because that's how short we run.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering. I mean, the
I
position
don't,
you're in.
I
you
don't
have to
really
say that.
recognize him now. There's a lot of difference when he was size wise from when he was here before.
It sounds like y'all have to have all hands on deck.
The
Why?
courts have,
Because
Yeah.
of that.
Sometimes, like right now, this is a murder trial, it's involved probably about 6 or 7 of our deputies, so I can't use them, because they invoke the rule and you can't be in there. So unfortunately, I have to use an investigator that's new to us, which is Margarita. She has the bailiff right now, because she wasn't involved in the case.
Oh,
too many others were involved in the case preparation, the investigation, so we can't put them in there to bailiff.
I got you.
Well,
And-
I mean, I don't see that we really have any choice other than to budget another.
Right.
Bailiff, a full-time bailiff. I don't have an issue with that myself.
I think it's a need.
Except because
I like it, but that's the way it is.
the courts have just, yeah, it's sitting in Bauer and Oster yesterday and I thought, it's same thing coming from us and we're kind of in the middle of the deal trying to keep it together and keep it in a safe environment and provide the personnel, but it takes them off the road and so staffing at the 2 levels for the bailiffs and we're still looking at the detention officer deal, trying to weigh out the 2 that we added last year to satisfy the court deal. We're thinking 1 district court and now that's turned into, like I said, on Wednesday. Every other Wednesday at the very minimum, there's 2 district judges here trying to catch this up. We're just not getting pleas out of the guys sitting in jail. They seem to be content to sit.
Well, and the judges, are at least one of them is gonna change because of age. And being a
Sorry,
district judge.
Well, I think you're telling the court, telling
It's
me you're,
gonna be
you're
over 70.
exhausting all your resources.
We are.
Judges.
Really?
And the other deal up front, when Bauer was talking about the attorney fees, I think she was asking to double from y'all. And that's another compounded deal. If we could speed this process up, there's a lot of opportunity for some savings from here and there. If we can get the attorneys off the payroll a little bit, and move some cases, get them out of the jail. We cut down on some manpower issues. But we have looked at applications for the last 3 months. because this has been going on and we just didn't see it getting, and it's not going to change with the new courthouse. It's going to be more of an issue overflowing downstairs in movement of people over there. But we need to do something there, but it affects both sides of the street. On the rest of the budget, cut what I could, where I could.
On the overtime, does that include Stone Garden?
It does.
It does.
yes.
So,
So we are at the beginning of this grant period and we have not submitted for the reimbursement yet. And
Okay.
that's probably 3 months worth of Stone Garden time that we have not received the reimbursement for.
oh, okay.
So that'll drop significantly.
So that number goes up and
hopefully by the
down.
Next commissioners, I mean, budget workshop.
And the bill, there was a bill that had to do with grant. Is that another version of Stone Garden?
Operation Lone Star
That's right.
is,
yeah.
is a state funded grant like Border Star used
And
to
I
be.
think it passed and it's already been signed, I think. I don't know.
I think you have to apply for that.
The grant period opened day before yesterday and we're submitting an application.
But no, I'm saying there was a new one that was
SC
on our
22.
list, or 22.
Yes, sir. That one, it was,
It was a grant that raises the minimum salary for sheriffs in the state of Texas and some deputies. They're trying to establish a benchmark, but money can be used also for equipment that's not a part of your budget. If you had,
But it's a grant for it.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
that you do have to apply
And-
for
yeah.
in January.
So I'm just wondering if that was new or that was just an extension of
That's
one
brand
of the
new.
ones you've been getting.
Brand new. The last, 2 years ago, the legislator made a run at it. The sheriff had introduced the deal. Trying to establish, I think, 70,000 as a minimum for sheriffs in the state. You know, a lot of schools have thought on that, and because there's some sheriff's offices that have 4 employees. And, you know,
Well,
Do
there's
20.
another bill that mandated schools to have certain number of law enforcement. I don't know if it passed, but it was on our list, or we was talking about.
there's going to continue to be efforts, I think, to bolster the schools.
Yeah.
And I'm not, you know, there's a lot of schools of thought and philosophies, and some have good, some have bad, but I do believe it's kind of a local jurisdictional deal. And I can stand here today and tell you that even with the 4 officers, a call at the school is going to see a response from every agency in this county. We have training coming up this summer as well, alerts coming back to conduct in cooperation with the school. They're making some of the buildings available to us before they tear them down for remodeling for an active shooter response. And we haven't done that with alert here in several years. So it'll be a refresher course for some and new for others. But it's on the front focus, Bubba, for this whole county.
Do we have any other questions
Sheriff-
for the, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No.
On 418, it's on page 32 at the top of it, there was a maintenance agreements, and you've got 55,000. We spent 1,000 so far this year. And in 2022, you had 59,000 spent, but the years prior was very limited amount. So I was wondering what the maintenance agreements were.
Maintenance agreement came up last year, the year before, because the warranty on the new radios after Harvey ran out at 3 and 4 years. And so we just signed a renewal on that, and it was $32,000. Instructed Rhonda to go ahead and take that out and I don't want to make the monthly payments, because then we get this stupid nasty invoice. And it'd be easier just to take that thing and pay it and be done with the annual
Okay.
maintenance on the radios. And that's a big part of
That's
that.
what that is, radio.
Yes, sir. Most of it's the agreement, with Motorola equipment for the tower and the radios.
If
And
I remember-
that'll be an annual deal because, yeah, the warranties.
If I remember it correctly, you did a lot of bargaining with the people to get that down, because it's like 75,000 originally, wasn't it? I mean,
It was,
a whole lot more.
yeah, it started considerably higher than that. And we took some stuff out because they had provisions that they would respond in less than 2 hours, and that they would keep an inventory of all the products and parts and have them here within 8 hours. So the county would have theoretically been paying them to maintain an inventory of parts. And if we could ever get to the point that I think we'd be in our best interest if we owned our own,
Mhm.
buy a combiner antenna and store it somewhere,
Yeah.
rather than pay them in an annual agreement and have it sitting in our back pocket. We have the GPS antenna, don't we?
We do have some spare parts.
Spare GPS antennas, but we don't have the combiner. But stuff like the repeaters and that stuff we don't have yet. And if we get to the point that I think it would be in our best interest in the radio line to establish that inventory and not pay Motorola to maintain an inventory. And yeah, we cut it 20-something thousand because that first year I like died. I thought, what? Couldn't afford that. But we've got to have that expertise responding because when those go down, too many things depend on it. And if the city is now expressed an interest in coming onto the system with us with the VHF, it's more incumbent that we have something that's robust and we have the response from in the maintenance agreements.
All right, y'all move on to the detention center. Yeah.
So what are we doing on federal prisoners this year?
Begging,
I mean, what are we, I mean, I'm more thinking, what are we budgeting on?
We picked up 10,
Because we were way off on.
we've been way out.
when I started there, we usually ran a normal about 80 to 90. We were down to, it's in the teens. And for the last, maybe 4 months, 5 months, I've been basically begging them to send us more people. 2 weeks ago, they sent us 10. And I heard yesterday that Nueces County is getting overcrowded again, so we're gonna be receiving, I think, 16 from Nueces County, but on the Fed side, we got 10.
Like I said, we were housing 28 or 30 Nueces County prisoners for a while, and then they kind of got caught up in their courts. And they had pulled everybody out probably 2 weeks ago, I think. We gained a few feds, but we have an agreement that's approved. I think comes to y'all's the 24th. It's gonna be on the agenda for an agreement with Gonzales County. That finally has got resolved and worked out. Commissioners, we're reaching out, trying to establish MOUs with anybody
With
that
other
has a
people.
crowding problem.
We currently have another agreement with Gonzales County, where they reached out, it was about 3 months ago.
Like I said, the judges established that contact, I think at a conference or something.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I know about 3 months ago, I sent out basically an invite through our JOIC, which is an intel briefing that I do every Thursday. And they put out a notice that we had available housing at our jail and hold it to hopefully stimulate some interest. And I think we did get a little bit of interest in it. Stuff, so.
I think Judge might have seen somebody from San Antonio that might.
Yeah, I haven't
And
heard
then,
back from them, but
then we were at the COG and the judge from, I don't remember if it's McMullen County or one of the others. He made the statement, said, I've been looking at it, if I couldn't just close our jail and ship them all somewhere else, but.
Like I say, yeah, if they don't have much population, they may say, gee, it's easier to house them elsewhere, or if they got
Have
a
some
deteriorated
open
facility.
cells or something.
Yeah. Not all counties in the state of Texas have a jail. I think like 245, 244 have jails and the rest do not. They have contracts. McMullen County, I think, contracts with Live Oak. But McMullen County, 600 residents and 200 calls for service a year. Their cases,
Yeah.
or their caseload is. Now they have calls beyond that, but they have 200 cases a year. We do that in a month.
But I'd just like to see us get what we budget be realistic, because I know last year's
The revenue projection
pretty
didn't.
big shocker, what was projected and what.
And when we got it resolved with Nueces County and they didn't quite make up, but for most of the year, Commissioner, we had more Nueces County prisoners than we had feds.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, just, I mean, not just fed, but whatever.
and I've
outside
reached out,
visitors. I told somebody, maybe you ought to put some sales on BRBO, somebody might want to rent one.
tell
for
the chamber,
night.
I tell the chamber,
Be
I've
an
got more feds.
experience, you know, get one pod and just make it all that way.
Well, I tell you what, it's a good if I saw what y'all feed. I mean, you do a good job as far as managing costs, but you know, the prisoners eat well. The jail's well taken care of. It's really impressive, really
I
impressive.
don't have any doubt if you put it on BRBO, somebody would want to come spend the night.
It's cheaper than some of the motel rooms.
Actually, I guess if they got drunk, they could just say, well, I
They
already
just
got
come
my
on in.
room, take me home.
We don't put mints on the pillow and we don't turn down. But to that, Commissioner, yeah, we're reaching out, trying to establish MOUs with as many surrounding places as we can to try to make up for the downturn of the Fed deal. But I talked to the marshal for the Southern District, and he said at a national level, the whole push is away from detaining anybody anywhere. And he said but he had promised to try to do something to get us some more inmates over here as well. Doing everything we can, because I've always understood and believed that the beds in that jail have an embedded cost, regardless of whether I've got 160 or 190 inmates. We share the cost at 190, we're better off. So I don't know of a case where we've turned anybody down. We'll work out what we can and try to get them on board, help them out. But they're all paying the same rate that the feds do. And that's one thing that we've remained consistent in our contracts and MOUs with Nueces County and with Gonzales and anybody else's. The proposal is to keep it at the same level with the feds.
What is the current rate?
64 or 70?
73.
73.
72 or 73.
76.
Oh.
I think any part of the first day is 64 or something. Because if they come in and they don't make 24 hours, they're out. We do charge most of the day, but not the whole day. But after that, yeah, we have a flat rate. All of them are structured to where we're reimbursed for anything other than routine medical cost, headache or aspirin. If they go to ER, we'll end up paying that, but we will bill the county and notify them as quick as we can if they want to make any other arrangements to take them somewhere else. If it's life threatening, we're going to take care of them and then work the building out later, but it's in the contract.
You've got 30,000 projected for your overtime, but your year to date is 74,000.
And part of that is the courtroom stuff, but some of it is Mondo is working Stone Garden, and his Stone Garden is going against the jail, but
Okay,
it'll be reimbursed.
We've tried to make some adjustments, sir, for overtime. I've talked to my staff, now in order to minimize the overtime that we've, been over in the last years. I know last year we were just huge amount over in overtime. So now before the officers work overtime, they have to give administrative approval, the reasoning for and stuff. And then we have even, asked someone to take comp time as opposed to.
right.
And it's working out. We're actually gonna have a staff meeting. I call a staff meeting on Thursday to discuss that, the very thing is, the overtime and the accumulation of it and stuff. So we're on it.
Okay.
We're trying to do everything that we can to try to minimize at the end of the year, the amount of overtime that we pay.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks.
Dan and I were just talking about, just reminding them with him saying that they do the comp time. We do require, or by statute and by our policy, they can only earn 90 hours, and after that, they do have to be paid the overtime.
Right.
What I've done also, ma'am, is, I've also allowed the officers, if we're working full staff, and again, just trying to be creative. If we're at full staff, I said, look, if you are at full staff, it's slow, and one of your officers have some accumulated, comp time, go home,
Good.
go home. So
Great.
we're already doing that.
That's great.
That's good.
Yeah.
Trying to hold that number down.
Trying to, with the interest of trying to hold it down. So we don't acquire too much comp time, and then at the same time, kind of mitigate how much overtime we're paid out.
Nice. All right. Any other questions?
Wish we had more we could cut out, but it's a target that the big items in this budget center around fuel, food. Understand, Commissioner, I wish I could bring you a solid number of revenue for housing. We're in a unique position where at least we're able to do it right now, and we're not having to ship them off somewhere. And we're not having a docket call. There was a time a few years back that the judges continued to work on bonds to get people out because we had the feds there, we were pushed at a max and we couldn't exceed that without getting in trouble with the jail commission.
I was impressed talking to your cafeteria manager because he was telling me he actually goes out shopping he doesn't just take what they're offering and he'll find someone has a quantity of food they're trying to
Close out or.
close out. And like he was saying, this month he was over budget because he bought a lot of frozen foods.
So that walk-in
That-
freezer allows.
Yeah, he has walk-in freezer, so that's gonna save the cost for the next few months.
He's an extremely good negotiator. He'll get commodities as far as California, I think it saves on shipping, where they ship for free and at a good price. And so he's very, very good
Yeah.
at negotiating what they ask for.
Yeah, well, I was impressed with that.
Sheriff, I don't know, one discussion that we had, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about that, is the cell phone allowance for all of your deputies.
That's a mixed bag. I don't know how many of, we've got some that probably would use it, some that would not, but my understanding of the policy doesn't allow it across the board within the sheriff's office, but we do have a lot of other departments in the county that have cell phone usage at the street level. And if we opened it up, I don't know what the take rate would be on it. What is it, $30 a month
Yes, sir.
is what the county pays against somebody's.
That's what our investigators are at, $30 a month.
And we've had
It's in,
cases where we get to some parts of the county that we didn't have good coverage and they're on a cell phone trying to call in because the radio issues are dead and weak on a handheld radio where we're out of car. The project we're working on, hopefully, if we get it funded and get it pulled together to tie the towers together, may slow some of that down and improve the coverage that we have, that south tower at 188 and get them all tied together. And we're working on that on a separate venue as well through that, was it MidMod or whatever it is. And it looks like it should fund, hopefully it'll fund, at no expense to the county, which will improve the radio communications in the county and not leave it such a safety issue for the officer that he's on his cell phone and enduring that cost. But there's a school of thought and logic out there in the legal group that said if the deputy takes his phone out and takes pictures with it, all of a sudden this becomes subject to seizure by the court. And they're saying, you ain't getting my phone. So some will not do it for that reason because they're just not going to open their personal cell phone up to the scrutiny of some attorney in the court.
We've actually had that happen at work. Employees would have a personal phone and took some photos and then, for some reason, something went to court, something happened and becomes a big issue.
Well, there for a while, everybody was carrying the cameras, the digital cameras.
Mhm.
And then, they're only using it for company business. It wasn't used for taking pictures of their kids at the swimming pool or anything like that, but it's for company business. And if they had a thing, they just checked it in and they downloaded it and then cleaned the camera up.
Well,
There's all kinds of,
technology continues to evolve and change on us every day and we've,
all this sure makes it harder, doesn't it?
well, we try to issue cameras at least to the investigators, but I don't know that patrol, if we've got the inventory of cameras, that we've got a camera in their patrolman's hand. And some of them are going to do what needs to be done at the time it needs to be done, but they're going to do it with a reservation in the back of their mind, knowing, court later is going to say, I want your phone,
Mhm.
or I need to dump your phone and because of case law with Borden or Brady and Morton, did we divulge everything? Now, if you've taken one picture on your phone, did you give me all your pictures? Yeah, I did. Can you prove it? Well, yeah. So some may not take the phone allowance, but some may want to make use of it. Questions? No more.
All right.
I know y'all
well,
don't have an open pot of money and I know it's gonna be a rough year, but it's to y'all's comments, the whole thing for years, we've held the line on a lot of staffing deals and the demands for the deputies being out there and responding to things, changes and annexation laws saying the cities can't grow like they did at the rate in the past. These developments are occurring in the county and our calls for service are pretty soon going to reflect that. And our response time will probably start generating some calls, complaints from if we're not there.
Yeah, because I think with this VRBO stuff, that's gonna push, the city regulations are gonna push a lot of people that are wanting to get into that, to do it in the county.
You have some in the.
You already
county
have
now.
them now.
You have some in the county now. Yep.
Sunset Bay, there might be 25, 30 people there some night.
Well, we had somebody at City by the Sea a few years back, at the end of one of the streets, and that's what generated the whole cul-de-sac argument. Was next door was a VRBO and people would come in 5 and 6 cars and didn't have room to park on their
Well, that was
property.
one of the things that we considered about those stilted apartments between, Palm Harbor and
Yep.
GFA. That, you know, and that's turned into a real issue.
Well, and it's just, while we limited city growth and taxation there, it dropped the burden on the county and we're going to assume more and more of that. And that development continues. I mean, not all developments occur in the city. We've got sewer that goes out beyond the city and so the opportunity for people to develop properties.
I'll
The
tell you,
deal
if
in
you ever
Coconut
get-
Cove is going to be nuts.
if you ever get sewer out on the south side of 188, that's gonna go crazy out there.
All right, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank y'all. Thanks for everything you're doing.
All right, do I have a motion to
I'll make a
adjourn?
motion, we close our workshop.
Yep.
So you-
We were the last,
I believe so, right?
you were out
Yeah.
of money when you called me in here?
We ran out, we're just letting you talk. We already ran out of money.
Commissioner,
We appreciate it.
Cheney?
Well, on my list, it says that we still haven't done,
They did theirs yesterday.
oh, okay, oh, okay, all right.
I didn't, yeah, sorry.
Commissioner Cheney?
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Casterline?
Aye.
Commissioner Dupnick?
Aye.
Judge Garza?
aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.
What are we on Friday?